the executive floor of Morrison Manufacturing, making heads turn in every direction. "You'll never be part of this company, Sophia. Never." I stood my ground, clutching the business proposal I'd spent months preparing. At 28, after earning my MBA and working for 3 top consulting firms, I'd finally gathered the courage to present my modernization plan for our family's struggling manufacturing business. "Dad, if you'd just look at the numbers," I pleaded, trying to keep my voice steady. "We're losing market share every quarter. The company needs to adapt. The company needs to stick to what works." He cut me off, his face reddening. "Just because you went to some fancy business school doesn't mean you know better than 30 years of experience." My brother James smirked from behind our father's desk, where he'd been promoted to CEO last month despite having 0 qualifications beyond being the firstborn son. "Face it, sis. You're too progressive for this place. We don't need your modern ideas." I took a deep breath, trying one last time. "Global Tech is threatening to take their business elsewhere. They want digital integration, sustainable practices. Global Tech." Dad scoffed. "They've been our client for 20 years. They're not going anywhere. Now get out before I have security escort you." I looked around the office. The same dark wood panels, the same dusty furniture, the same outdated equipment I remembered from childhood visits. Nothing had changed, and if my father had his way, nothing ever would. "Fine," I said quietly, gathering my dignity. "But remember this moment, Dad. Remember you had a chance to save this company and chose pride over progress." James laughed. "Save the company? From what? We're doing just fine without your help." I turned to leave but paused at the door. "Global Tech's contract is up for renewal in 2 months. But I'm sure you knew that, right, James?" The flicker of uncertainty that crossed his face told me everything. They hadn't even checked. That evening I sat in my apartment staring at my laptop screen. The proposal I'd prepared for Morrison Manufacturing was still open, mocking me with its carefully crafted charts and projections. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother. "Your father is just old-fashioned, sweetie. Give him time." Time was exactly what Morrison Manufacturing didn't have. I'd seen the numbers, tracked the market trends. Without major changes, the company would be obsolete within 5 years. Another text came through, this time from my best friend Olivia. "Well? How did it go?" Instead of responding, I called her. When she picked up, I could hear the concern in her voice. "That bad, huh?" "They wouldn't even look at the proposal," I said, my voice cracking slightly. "Dad basically said I'd never be part of the company because I'm too progressive." "Their loss," Olivia replied. After a pause, she added, "You know that trust fund your grandmother left you? The one you've been saving?" I glanced at my bank account, where my grandmother's inheritance sat untouched. She'd left it to me with a note, "For when you're ready to make your mark on the world." "What about it? Global Tech is looking for new manufacturing partners, right? And you know their business inside out." I sat up straighter, an idea forming. "Olivia, you're a genius." "I know," she laughed. "So, what are you going to do?" I opened a new document on my laptop, fingers hovering over the keyboard. "I'm going to do exactly what they said I couldn't. I'm going to build something better." Over the next week, I worked non-stop, adapting my Morrison Manufacturing proposal into a business plan for a new company. I called in every contact I'd made during my consulting years, reached out to former colleagues, and started building a team. 2 weeks later, Pierce Innovation Partners was born, funded by my grandmother's inheritance and backed by some of the brightest minds in modern manufacturing. 1 month after that, I sat in a sleek conference room in Global Tech's headquarters, presenting my vision for a fully integrated, sustainable manufacturing partnership. Their CEO, Michael Chin, listened intently as I outlined everything Morrison Manufacturing had refused to consider. "Impressive," he said when I finished. "But you're a new company. Why should we trust you over established manufacturers?" I smiled, pulling up one final slide. "Because I know exactly what you need. I spent years studying Global Tech's operations while working at Morrison Manufacturing. The difference is I'm ready to give you the future, not cling to the past." As I walked out of Global Tech that afternoon, contract in hand, my phone buzzed. A text from James. "Where are you? Dad's looking for you. Global Tech isn't answering our calls." I didn't respond. Let them worry. In 2 weeks, when Global Tech's contract with Morrison Manufacturing expired, they'd understand exactly what they'd lost. Sometimes being banned from the family business is the push you need to build something better. And I was just getting started. The news hit Morrison Manufacturing like a tsunami. I was in my new office reviewing design specs for Global Tech's first order, when the calls started flooding in. First came James, his voice tight with panic. "What did you do?" "Global Tech just canceled their entire contract." I let it go to voicemail. Then my father, "You call me right now, young lady. This is your fault, isn't it?" Delete. My mother tried next, her voice trembling. "Sophia, honey, your father is having a meltdown. Global Tech was 40% of our business. Please call us back." I switched my phone to silent and turned to the floor-to-ceiling windows of my downtown office. From here I could see Morrison Manufacturing's outdated building across the city, looking more like a relic than ever. "Miss Pierce." My assistant Sarah appeared at the door. "Your father and brother just entered the building. Security wants to know if they should let them up." I straightened my blazer, checking my reflection in the window. "Let them come." Minutes later, I heard my father's voice booming through the reception area. "Where is she? Where's my daughter?" I stayed seated at my desk as they burst into my office. Dad's face was purple with rage, while James looked like he'd aged 5 years overnight. "You vindictive little dash," James started, but I cut him off. "Careful, brother. You're in my company now, not yours." I gestured to the chairs across from my desk. "Sit down. You look terrible. Don't you dare act superior with me," Dad snarled, but he sat anyway, his legs seemingly giving out. "What did you do? How did you steal our biggest client?" I pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk. "I didn't steal anything. I offered them what they've been asking you for years: modernization, digital integration, sustainable practices. Everything in the proposal you refused to even look at." James grabbed the folder, flipping through it frantically. "This is impossible. You can't have built all this in 2 months. "Actually, I built it in 6 weeks, I corrected him. "Turns out when you combine modern business practices with actual innovation, things move pretty fast." "With what money?" Dad demanded. "Grandmother's inheritance." I watched his face darken at the mention of his mother, who had always supported my business ambitions. "She believed in me even if you never did." "You're going to destroy us," James whispered, still staring at the contracts. "No, brother. You're doing that just fine on your own. I'm simply building something better." Dad slammed his fist on my desk. "This is betrayal. We're family." "Family." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Was it family when you humiliated me in front of the entire office? When you dismissed years of my experience because I dared to suggest changes? When you promoted James over more qualified candidates just because he's your son? That's different, Dash." "No, it's not." I stood up, placing both hands on my desk. "You banned me from the family business, Dad. You said I'd never be part of the company. So I built my own, and now I'm your biggest competitor." The silence that followed was deafening. Through my office windows I could see my team working, young innovative minds implementing the very changes Morrison Manufacturing had rejected. "What do you want?" James finally asked, his voice hollow. "Want?" I raised an eyebrow. "To give Global Tech back. To stop this madness." I sat back down, smoothing my skirt. "I don't want anything from Morrison Manufacturing. Global Tech chose us because we're better. Simple as that." "We'll sue," Dad threatened, but his voice lacked conviction. "On what grounds?" I smiled. "I built this company legally with my own money. I won Global Tech's contract fairly. But..." I paused, letting the moment stretch. "I might be open to a partnership. If you're finally ready to listen to my ideas." The impact of Global Tech's departure hit Morrison Manufacturing harder than even I had anticipated. Within weeks, other clients started calling my office, curious about the new company that had stolen Morrison's biggest account. Every time my phone rang, another piece of my father's empire slipped away. 1 month after our confrontation in my office, Morrison Manufacturing's stock had dropped 30%. My mother's calls became more frequent, more desperate. "Your father isn't sleeping," she said one evening. "James is talking about layoffs. Please, Sophia, can't you help?" I sat in my home office looking at the latest reports. Morrison Manufacturing was bleeding money, exactly as I'd predicted in my original proposal. I tried to help Mom, I replied quietly. They didn't want it. The next day I received an unexpected visit. James walked into my office, looking disheveled, his usual arrogance replaced by exhaustion. Nice place, he said, glancing around at the modern decor. Very, you. What do you want, James? He collapsed into a chair, running his hands through his graying hair. We're losing Miller Corp next week. Thompson Industries the week after that. Dad won't admit it, but we're dying. I leaned back, studying my brother. And. He swallowed hard. You were right. About everything. The modernization, the digital integration, all of it. We need help. I pulled up Morrison Manufacturing's latest numbers on my tablet. You've lost 60% of your market value in 6 weeks. Your infrastructure is outdated, your processes are inefficient, and your remaining clients are jumping ship. I know, he whispered. So what exactly are you asking for? James looked up, his eyes meeting mine for the first time. The partnership you mentioned. We need it. Dad's too proud to ask, but I'm not. Not anymore. I stood up and walked to my window, looking out at the city skyline. Bring Dad here. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. If he can admit he was wrong, we can talk terms. The next morning I arrived early, making sure everything was perfect. When my father walked in, he looked smaller somehow, the fight drained out of him. You've built something impressive here, he said gruffly, looking around my boardroom. I know, I replied simply. Shall we begin? Over the next 2 hours I laid out my terms. Pierce Innovation Partners would acquire a controlling interest in Morrison Manufacturing. We would modernize their facilities, update their processes, and bring them into the 21st century. The Morrison name would remain, but the old way of doing things would not. And my role? Dad asked, his voice tight. Advisory board. You have experience we can use, Dad, but not if you resist every change. He nodded slowly, the fight finally gone from his eyes. And James? He'll need to earn his position just like everyone else. As they signed the contracts, I felt no triumph, no vindictive pleasure. Instead, I felt something unexpected: hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, this would heal our family as well as save the company. 3 months later, I stood on the factory floor of the newly renovated Morrison Manufacturing plant. Global Tech had agreed to split their contracts between both companies, impressed by the changes we'd implemented. It's different, Dad said, standing beside me, watching the new automated systems at work. But better. Change usually is, I replied. He turned to me, his eyes softer than I'd seen them in years. I was wrong, Sophia. About everything. You didn't destroy our company, you saved it. I know, I smiled. Now ready to learn how all this works. I believe you have some catching up to do. For the first time in months, he smiled back. That evening, as I sat in my office reviewing the latest projections, I found myself looking at 2 framed photos on my desk. One showed the old Morrison Manufacturing building, a reminder of where we started. The other showed our new integrated facility, gleaming with modern technology and innovation. My phone buzzed, a text from James. Just